Tim Legler. He's going to help us analyze this. Tim, it's Michael and Don. How you doing?
Hey, guys. How are you?
Good. Can Oklahoma City beat San Antonio without Serge Ibaka?
Yeah, I think they can. I think anybody that thinks that the series is over because they don't have Ibaka, I think that's a mistake. Yeah, Oklahoma City, because of talent that they have at the very top of their roster with Westbrook and Durant, you're talking about two guys that are so capable of carrying a team, and just by their greatness, getting a couple wins in the series. And then if they get enough of a contribution out of a Reggie Jackson in this series, who I think is going to be critical as their third scorer, and Adams and Collison and Perkins can rebound the basketball well up front, still a very, very good team. I think San Antonio will win the series, but this could be, still a 7-game series, even without Ibaka.
I don't know how the Spurs keep doing it. I keep asking everybody, and it's just so strange. You figure that window closed on them last year, losing games 6 and 7, and to struggle early on, but just find their game. How do they just continue to do it? And do we even just assume that after this year, no matter where it goes, that it's automatically over?
I don't think there's any way you could make that assumption. I think based on the fact that Manu Ginobili has had his healthiest run in the postseason for probably the last 3 years. Has been a big part of this. Tony Parker continues to be great and the engine that drives this team, and he's right in the middle of his prime. Duncan was a guy that I thought 2 or 3 years ago was going to retire. He was basically playing on one leg, and his production was down into that 10 and 6 type of category. He's resurrected himself by losing weight, by some things he's done in the off season medically and from a strength and conditioning standpoint, to extend his career as a productive player. And then you've got a Kawhi Leonard, continues to get better, and then it just seems like the role players they plug in always fit. And I think part of that's because of the unselfishness of their best players. It helps when you could bring in a Bellinelli and a Patty Mills, and they just seamlessly blend into what you're doing. It helps when the stars are that unselfish, and they just really do care about winning. It makes role players more important on that team. Another guy I didn't mention was Splitter, who I think is one of the more improved players over the last couple of years. But his production and what you can count on for him now. So they just do it year in, year out. They reload. Their stars continue to be productive, and then the new guys they bring in just fit right in. And San Antonio, they play as well as a team as anybody in this league. Probably the second best passing team in the league, or the best passing team in the league, along with Miami.
All right, so does Kawhi Leonard get Kevin Durant at the start?
He's going to have to. I think when you look at their personnel, they don't really have another guy that's going to be able to match up with, in terms of, if you went into a lab and said, give me this type and size and physical strength of a player, this is the kind of athlete you need to play. Kevin Durant, Kawhi Leonard kind of fits that. So he's going to get them the majority of the time in this series. If not, they're in trouble, because if you're going to put a Boris Diaw on him or a smaller guy on him, Kevin Durant's going to have a big series. I think he will anyway. He'll have his success against Kawhi Leonard, but at least Leonard, because of his physical strength and his lateral quickness and his reach and ability to get off the ground and contest, he's going to make Durant work in this series. I think the real problem for San Antonio is, what do you do with Russell Westbrook? Because Tony Parker and Patty Mills, the two guys that are going to be guarding him more than anybody else in this series, it's going to be very difficult for them to keep him out of that middle range area of the floor where he shoots those pull-up jump shots, because he can get that off anytime he wants against guards that size. And I think that's really where the challenge comes in for San Antonio. If Westbrook has an efficient series where he's shooting around 50% most of these games and limiting his turnovers, if he can raise his level to that, then Oklahoma City has a great chance to win.
Parker healthy?
Yeah, I think he's going to be fine. There was more talk about it, I think, than was actually there. You try to find something wrong with this team. But I think the fact that, he never really even missed a beat, you're going to see him come back, and he's going to be at full strength tonight. He knows the importance of this first game. That's typically when road teams in the playoffs think they can steal a game and steal home court as a result. He knows the importance of that. I think you're going to come out tonight and you're going to see Tony Parker going at the same RPM that he usually plays at.
All right, now to the East. This is like the 4th time, Tim, that we've looked at the Pacers and said maybe they finally have righted the ship and will be the team that we saw early in the season. Is that game 1 an indication that they finally got it right?
Look, that was arguably their best game in 4 months. So, is that a trend? Can you sit there and say, if you're watching the Pacers, this is a sustainable way now to play the Heat? Look at the way they operated offensively. There's some things, they obviously played great. I'm not going to take anything away from them, but there are some things that you look at and say that's not going to continue. I think first thing is the free throw disparity. I mean, that's an enormous difference. When you get outscored by 19 at the line in a playoff game, as Miami did, you're not going to win. And you look at the regular season, Miami was right there, basically even with them in the free throws that they shot against each other in the 4 games, and on the season, exactly the same number, 23 a game. So you looked up in that first game, it's 37-15 at the foul line in attempts. That's not going to continue. The other thing that's not sustainable for Indiana, 12 turnovers. 12 turnovers is an average night for a good team in the NBA. Indiana is sloppy with the ball, and you can look at this and say, well, Miami didn't force them. Well, Indiana normally gives you 5 or 6 a game that are unforced. They didn't really commit those turnovers in this game. A 12 was a great number for them. Frank Vogel's thrilled with that. So those are a couple things that you look at and say that's going to change in Game 2. And I think you're going to see LeBron James get 12 to 15 free throws in Game 2. I will be shocked if he doesn't. They had 6 different guys get to the line one time, basically shoot 2 free throws, but get to the line once, and then 3 free throws out of Dwayne Wade. That's all. That's not going to happen again in Game 2, and I think the turnovers are going to spike for Indiana, and they'll be held under 50%. So all of those things Eric Spoelstra knows should change.